Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to invite SueAnn on board. She has a very, very different combination in her, a teacher of two kinds. The one who teaches you martial arts and also one who tells you how astrology works for you. Well, that's getting two extremes right there at the midpoint. SueAnn, I'm not going to take much time, but what attracted you to astrology? You
Oh
come from
my,
such a diverse
yeah.
background. I mean,
Well,
professional
well,
bodybuilder and everything.
the Aikido that I study is very meditative. It's like Zen Buddhism. But I've always, since I was a teenager and I read the autobiography of a yogi, I was very interested in Vedic philosophy and meditation. And so that was kind of in my roots before I did bodybuilding or anything. And I did bodybuilding because my Aikido teacher thought it would be, because I was very shy, and he thought it would help build my confidence. He didn't realize it would make me a professional bodybuilder where I was traveling all over the world. But he just kind of said, "This is good training for you. Do it. You do what your guru says, right?"
Hmm.
So I sort of fell into that, not headlessly, I probably had a K2 transiting my lugna or something.
So,
So I discovered Jyotish in 1990. Right when my bodybuilding career ended, I needed some healing. I was so caught up in the physical body, I wanted to get rid of it all. So I went to India and stayed in an ashram for a while, and that's how I discovered Jyotish. And I was blown away. I thought it was just so amazing. And I came home and I started looking for books and things to read. That was 1990.
and so
And
it's
yeah,
28 years down the line, and you're
yeah,
still attached to that.
yeah. I read a book, but there wasn't any teachers or anything. And then the first American Vedic Astrology Council, or whatever it's called, the people who have conferences in the United States, Dennis Harness, those folks. Dennis used to live in my area, not far from here. They put on that first conference in 1991 in nearby in the San Francisco area. So I went to that, and I still have friends to this day who I met at that conference. um,
So,
so
so that was your growth in the world of Jyotish. So,
yeah,
what
and
are you
I kind of puttered around with it for the longest time, and then I really got into studying with Hart Defoe about 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met Sanjay Roth in 2005. He was doing a conference in Sunnyvale.
Okay.
And I was very sketchy. I was in and out. I would get really into it, and then I would get busy with other things. But it was always in my mind, but I was not consistent. And then I met him, and that really made me go deep, because you have to go to India to study with him at the time anyway. And
Okay.
so I did a lot of trips to India. I did like 6 trips to India and got really super into it. And then it was then I realized I really didn't know anything doing that, you know. But anyway, that was wonderful experience. Really wonderful. I think,
Well, we all are learning. We all are on a learning curve. Some more learned than the others, but it's a great curve to be on. With that, what are you going to teach us today? What are we going to talk
well,
about?
well, I have been very much into nakshatras. I love them. That's really where it's at for me, because I'm not a very analytical type person. I like psychology and imagery, and I just find them so beautiful and inspiring. I've always been into Jungian archetypes. And I feel that all of my sort of psychology background, because I work with psychologists in my work with Aikido, and so I've studied a lot of that, and that integrates so well. The nakshatras integrate the Jyotish with the Jungian and the Western psychology. So when I got into nakshatras, I started sort of specializing in padas, researching them, and coming up with just some of it's like from teachers, kind of oral tradition type things, and then I would research it some more. So this isn't all kind of from, I can't pinpoint sutras for some of the stuff I'm going to talk about with the padas, but I did, when we get to it, I'll show you, take interpretations from Trivedi's book, Trivedi's book. So I got it from K.N. Saraswati's book, and some of the interpretations, and I put them in the slides.
Okay, and then you also worked with your with the charts to see how much of it was working and things like that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I saw it working with me. That's what got me interested. I first got this idea of seeing the deity sort of having 4 different ways the deity like behaves or focuses based on the pada. And that's kind of what I did with Ardra, with Rudra. You kind of can see there's 4 levels or 4 interpretations of Rudra in your chart based on which pada it's in. And okay, so and then we'll talk about that when we look at the slides, because I laid it out at the beginning.
Yes.
The tattvas and the navamshas, and it's all kind of based on those.
So what do you mean by a pada? What do you mean by a pada?
Pada, the basic meaning of a pada is a step or a foot. You'll see in some of my slides, you see the 4 footsteps. Also a direction, which is what ayana means. Ayana is, there's 4 directions.
Okay.
Like the 4 basic directions: north, south, east, and west.
East to west. So it has.
So there's directions in life.
Okay.
Based on 4
what do you
directions.
mean by majority pada defines the element of a rasi? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so can you go back to the last slide?
Yes.
Okay, so here we have Aries, right? The first pada of Aries is a fire pada. So I need to probably explain that. Fire, earth, air, water, just like the Rashis.
Yes.
We start with fire, we go to earth, then we go to air, and then we go to water. Then we have another fire, and the 5th pada of Aries is also fire.
Right.
Then we have again earth, air, fire. Earth, air, and water. And then the 9th pada here is also fire.
Right.
So
going to Sagittarius. Right.
So there are 3 fire padas in Aries. So the majority, and only 2 of the earth, air, and water. Okay, so this is a teaching of Sanjay Ross. So the majority of the padas make the Rashi
element.
a fire sign. Taurus will have 3 earth padas.
Right.
Gemini will have 3 air padas. Cancer will have 3 water padas. So the principle is the majority of the element makes the Rashi, gives the Rashi its element. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So when it's the 3 padas of any one element in a rasi, that defines, because the others are 2 each.
Right. That's exactly right. I've not heard anybody say that except Pandit Raj, so I don't know if that's just normal or I just learned that.
No, but it fits the equation.
So this is basically, these 4 aims of life, or 4 directions, and they have specific meanings. Dharma is the fire, and Artha is the earth, Kama is the air, and Moksha is the water. And they go with an element, they go with a direction, and they go with a caste. The Kshatriyas, the warriors, the merchants, the entertainers and artisans, and then the priestly or scholarly caste would go with water.
Right.
So the deities will be influenced by this. The deity is influenced by the nakshatra. It's the energy of the nakshatra, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, the nakshatra is the main ruler, is not the planet. Say Rahu in the case of Ardra, it's going to be Rudra.
Right.
So it's better. It's if you want to understand Ardra, really study Rudra and his stories, and then you're going to get a different direction or different behavior possibly.
Totally.
Based on the padas.
Totally. So they form the backdrop on which, it's kind of you put a planet. The nakshatra forms the backdrop and on which you put the planet.
Yes, exactly. So I generally like to look at the tripod, the lugna, the sun, and the moon, especially the moon, because that's our mentality.
Hmm.
But our lugna is kind of how our brain works, how our kind of perspective in life. So for instance, I'm a third pada pusha.
Hmm.
So third pada is Kama, right? It's connected to Libra, the
Hmm.
Navamsha.
Hmm.
It's Cancer, right? It's all totally in Cancer. So you've got Cancer also influencing the water sign and a air pada. It's Kama. What's Kama? What's Libra? So my type of Pusha would act through me, more wanting to share knowledge, to socialize around knowledge, to go to conferences, to go to classes. I learn more through conversations and stuff than being like a scholar. Like that would be more maybe mokshapada, sort of meditating and going deep in the, into a retreat or something.
Research. Yeah.
Yeah, or research. I do like research because Libra, it's an air sign. You like to, but you want to share and interact with
True.
people around the knowledge.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I see it. And if it was Arthapada, I would say, maybe I'd want to start a bookstore, or I'd be a conference maker. I'd want to create a conference so I could make money, at sharing knowledge.
Or you could want to do something structurizing it, properly, because it's Arthapada and it's in the sign of the Virgo. So again, you would want to structurize things very, very carefully before you kind of go ahead,
Right. Yeah.
bringing in
Right.
administration and
Uh-huh. Exactly. That's right.
so.
Okay, so what I did here is I just tried to come up with as many meanings of the four directions or goals, you could say.
Hmm.
So people don't think just if they have everything in the fourth pada that they're so spiritual. It can maybe, you can be, I've seen murders with lots of moksha padas. So it's about, this life, the karma will be more about losing or loss or sacrifice or
Hmm.
letting go or detachment, all those different words. It could be charity, it could
Hmm.
be nature, or someone who is always seeking or learning. It doesn't necessarily mean it's about spirituality. It could be, about being a teacher, educator, and it doesn't have to be a spiritual subject, but you're wanting to further the development. That's, moksha I think of as evolving. So we can't literally take these words too literally. Same with artha. It doesn't mean you're materialistic because you have a lot of things in artha. Ramana Maharishi has a lot of arthapada planets. You think of him, he's like one of the most spiritual people you can imagine. Artha, he probably has never touched a dollar bill or a rupee. But it's kind of, you see this idea of sort of a groundedness, or someone very secure in themselves. If someone like him, I have to look at all the other things in context. But maybe he sees the world as his family, because arthropod is sort of about, it's like Taurus energy.
Hmm.
It's about, your wealth is your family, you
Hmm.
treasure, your community or your ashram, that type of thing. I mean, he kind of was like, so he's sort of an extreme example of that. And I sometimes like to show people who you least expect to have certain, just to break out of the stereotype
But you
that,
also written it's a service kind of thing, so he would fall in that. As you said, there's so many things you can associate with it. It's not
right,
just the accumulation of wealth or something like that, because he's working on a different plane than the normal human being.
exactly, yeah. So it could be about, it's about values, what you
Right.
treasure, what you value, yeah. And okay, and kama pada isn't just about sexual pleasure, everything Kama Sutra.
Hmm.
It's your enjoyment of your relationships.
Hmm.
It's people who focus on experience. Experience is what they value the most. Maybe traveling, fulfilling their desires, and those desires can be very lofty. But there'll be that, because this is the connection to the Navamsha. And Navamsha, I feel, is sort of the deeper, sort of truer level of who we are. So if you have a lot of things in Kama, you're going to have a lot of things in those air signs in the Navamsha, which are what about? They're about, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius are about society and interacting with society.
Right. Yeah. And what of the fire padas?
Okay, so fire padas, I sort of see are kind of, it's focused on duty, that's clear, right? That's, the warrior caste, what is it? Your duty is to lead, is to be the protector, to give guidance, to create the rules of society, like politicians, lawmakers, lawyers, policemen, kings,
it's a much more duty-bound kind of a role that a person has to.
Well, you could say I have a lot of stuff in fire, and there's a kind of controllingness to my nature. I want things a certain way. We were talking about that earlier. Structure is important. Following rules, being fair. It's this way, not that way. This is right, that's wrong. That's more Dharma. The fire is enthusiastic. Fire is very, it's very
futuristic.
Yeah, right. Whereas water would be more the past.
Yes.
And so that's why I put here judgmental and righteous. You think of the fire, what's it go to? It goes to Leo, Sagittarius, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Those fiery signs are very, they can be stubborn and headstrong, and I know what's the way, the right way, and
yes, and they can be very, very much into themselves also. I mean, not bothering too much about others, and just making sure, if afflicted, making sure that it's your goal and you have to do it. So it can be that, or self-oriented also.
Yeah, kind of blinders on, kind of very inspired in a certain direction, which you don't feel that with more air signs, and water signs are more merging and blending, signs, padas, more, this is what I put here, is just, this is sort of the padas connecting to the Navamshas.
Right.
So just some key words that would go with like Sagittarius. Since Rahu Nakshatras are kind of on that Sattvic level from Sagittarius to Pisces. We could, kind of the three lokas. I would say, like the first loka would be from Aries to Bhuloka, like earthbound or more present oriented is Aries to Cancer. Those Navamshas go with, like Ketu, Moon, and Jupiter Nakshatras. So I kind of call that sort of level 1. Ketu, Moon, and Jupiter Nakshatras, and then you have Venus, Venus, Mars, and Saturn Nakshatras would be like Bhuvaloka, from Leo in the Navamsha, Leo to Scorpio. And then this level, Rahu, the first one is Sun, Rahu, and Mercury, right? They're all going to be lined up to this Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. So all the nakshatras that are the signs that are in that third, what Pandit Rath calls the Swargaloka level. They're kind of more about releasing, right? We start at Mula, letting go of the material body, or the egoic, constraints. We start, that Mula breaks things up. So it's kind of the beginning.
This is so interesting. Yes, this is very interesting. Yeah.
So anyway, I just try to kind of come up with some keywords here for people who are trying to kind of think of what it could mean. Like it's, you've got, so you can study this way. You can see the Bhuloka would be Aries, right? It would be fire, movable, and Rajas. So that's a distinction between an Aries Navamsha planet and a Sagittarius Navamsha planet. You see, and so the fact that Jupiter is ruling Sagittarius gives it a layer of interpretation that that say like Aries, it's Mars. That Navamsha, that person's going to behave more like a general or a pioneer than say this more dharmic. I have Osama bin Laden as a Pada 1 moon. And you can see he's very priestly. He's very, very righteous and fanatical and Sagittarius, right? He's got a goal and he's aiming for it and nothing's going to get in his way. And he warns everybody and he changes the world with his plan. You know, it's a plan and he's going to go for it. And he does it, but he does it out of this, if you read up on him, he does it out of a sense of trying to rectify the world.
Right.
You know, that he believes that the Western world, especially the United States, threw the world out of balance by, you know, invading Iraq and all that stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolute sense. I can totally relate to that. So it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. So we move on to.
Okay, now I must say that again, you know what I do is I just try to come up with as many words and phrases that I pick out here and there from books and things. So and make a synopsis, say, of Rudra. So
Okay.
focusing more on Rudra than Ardra.
Okay.
So Ardra is a nakshatra with all kinds of qualities. But then if we just kind of look at Rudra, and it helps me learn about the deities to do it this way. So instead of thinking about all the things that have to do with Ardra and all the technical techniques that are being taught, I just look at Rudra and I think, okay, who's Rudra? What's his personality? If he were a person, what would he be like? What's he good at? You know, what's his focus? He's a healer. He loves animals. He's kind of a strange loner, a weirdo, lives off the grid, I call it. You know, they want to live like, I always think of John the Baptist in the Bible.
Okay.
He's a crazy guy who lives out in the wilderness with a loin, with like a fur around his groin, and he eats wild locusts. And you know, people have to go out to this wilderness to connect with him. I have a lot of good examples, but I couldn't use them all today. But so you see this, they're very brilliant. They're, you know, we've got the human head, one of the symbols. They have to put a tremendous amount of effort into achieving. You know, there's no, you know, it's like there's no way you're going to achieve anything if you don't put a huge amount of effort and be ready for a lot of obstacles. That's
Right.
what, you know. So, so the deity, this is like four different sides of Rudra. Here's the focus, the Dharma of Rudra. Like I said, Osama bin Laden, it's the most exploratory and curious pada. Now, if you go back to the last slide, I want to give credit to where I got this. I didn't make this up. I got this stuff in here, and I made it more concise from Prashna and Dr. Saraswati. So I kind of combine them. So these ideas come from those two authors.
Right.
And they're, you know, for me to start to apply things to charts, I have to kind of put it somewhere where I can go back and forth, you know, read it and then look. So this one is the most exploratory, and you see, this is sort of interesting the way Prash talked about it. He actually came up with this. The storm is coming, but it hasn't hit yet. All right, and then the second pada, the storm is gaining momentum. You know, this pada, according to these two authors, has a lot of weeping in it, a lot of pain, a lot of misery. And I'll talk about Ashtamamsha when I get to my case, but it's the most difficult. See, the most negative pada. Then the third pada actually is pretty brutal. You see, evil deeds, harsh and cruel. And this is because of these lords. You know, we've got two Jupiters. So we've got the storm coming, but it hasn't hit yet. And then we have the storm has ended and the sun's coming out for the fourth pada. That's Pisces. So we got the Jupiter Navamshas, but the middle two Navamshas are difficult. You see, Saturn rules. We've got Capricorn. They're considered, you know, very difficult energies, right? Dark energies in Capricorn, especially Aquarius. Okay, so I did pick, you know, I was very picky to choose exemplars that kind of make my points here. and you'll probably find lots of exceptions where they don't make the points, but so here are the most negative. We
No,
have
but I do agree. I do agree to what you're saying, because when we see that pada there in Aquarius, what happens is that Aquarius also has a Rahu element and two Rahus, and then so yes, if a person is not very evolved, if a person is not very evolved, like I have always with Rahu pada, with Rahu nakshatras, I've seen Shah Rukh Khan and I've seen Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He has an he has planets in all the three of the Rahu nakshatras. So now I realize that what made Ramakrishna so evolved, and even Shah Rukh Khan is said to be a very generous person, and a very, in fact, I was working with Rahu nakshatras, so with these charts, and I've seen Sean Connery, the first James Bond. He has many planets in Mars nakshatras. So why it's happened and how the color comes up, that is so beautifully defined by you. And the elements of charity, the elements of going beyond and doing the duty, because it falls in the third level of the nakshatras in the Navamsha, makes so much sense with the Rahu nakshatras. It's beautiful.
And Aquarius is a very humanitarian, thinks of the whole society, not just themselves. They're not self-oriented, Aquarius.
Yes.
But you can see this electricity is very strong. This is when the storm is at its peak.
Yeah.
So we have Einstein. We'll look at Einstein.
Yes.
And Janis Joplin, if people know who she is. So there's one other, yeah.
So, yeah.
So you can see he's got his, there we go, the father of the atomic bomb.
Yes.
I mean, to me, that's like a symbol of this nakshatra, this energy that gets unleashed, and how much these people have to, if they have strong ardra, they have to learn to channel this intense energy that they have, or they become, like they could become crazy or murderers or something, or just go berserk.
Right.
So he you can see here, he had complications at birth. It's his lagna.
Right.
Lagna ardra. His head was large, which is a symbol of ardra. He didn't speak. I mean, his brain must have been growing like crazy. All kinds of electrical activity. And they actually thought he was mentally retarded. And that's one of the themes of ardra, is being misunderstood.
Yeah, and he was Rudra is in himself a very quiet deity. He's so moody, and he's just not willing to be social to anybody. And Einstein was known to be moody. He would talk only when he wanted to, and he would just not give everybody and anybody access to his library and things like that.
Well, you can see here with this is his blackboard. I had also pictures of his desk, which were like a storm hit his, the storm at its peak in his office. His office just splurging out of books and papers everywhere. But this was his mind, it's this explosion of brilliance. But he was a difficult person. I did a lot of research on his personality with his wife. It was terrible. It was a very self-centered person, actually.
Yes, obsessed with himself and his research, and that goes too well with Adra. He is just very focused and with his research and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful example. So we'll move on to this second.
Okay. So the last, this goes to Pisces, right? So we have more the spirit, maybe more spirit. It's also the fourth pada is a Pushkar Amsha pada, which is supposed to be the, auspicious, lotus blossoming. And that's such a Sai Baba, isn't he a great example? He also has a lot of planets in Anuradha, big time. But it's the moon and Rahu together. And now I don't know if this is actually the 8th house, because I couldn't get the perfect birth time.
Yeah.
But just reading up on him, how much he loved animals, being the Pashupati, Lord of the animals that Rudra is. and kind of a little strange. You know, he was very sensitive, very compassionate. You know, that healing, more Pisces quality comes out. Very strong desire to help the needy. You know, very charitable, loving, devout, expansive. You know, all those qualities of the end of the storm and this beautiful light being coming out. So,
And it's this cleaning all around. It's cleaning all around because everything has been cleared after this
yeah.
storm has. So yeah.
But they said he would get hysterical in his youth. He often got hysterical and emotional. So he did have the sort of Rudra, you know, when I think of Rudra, the story where he's crying because he doesn't have a name. He's howling and crying until he gets the proper name for himself. And there's that sense too that Rudra's always misunderstood. You know, he was different, you know, Satya Sai Baba.
Yeah.
Because he
And
was
he
considered,
was also into healing. He healed a lot of people, you know.
yeah, he had the healing power.
Yes. So
Right.
so this works greatly for, I mean, your examples are really very beautiful here.
Good. I'm glad that makes sense. So the second pada, let's see. So this is a good example I thought of. Okay, so I have Osama bin Laden and Mohammed Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They're both, you know, they were in cahoots to create 9/11. So it was an example of this man. I don't have a picture of him. This is not him, but this is him. This is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He
No.
was the mastermind. That's
Yeah.
why outside the box thinking. It was a brilliant, unbelievable, beyond the wildest imaginations. I mean, sudden, explosive, brilliant, hits the target, created lots of tears, and it changed the world. So this man came up with this plan, and he sold it. He pitched it to Osama bin Laden, who paid for it, right? He funded the plan. And, you know, being an American, it was extremely upsetting. I mean, it was upsetting to everybody because it wasn't just Americans who were killed, but this whole idea of hitting the symbols of Western civilization at the core, you know, the economy, they targeted the Capitol, the White House, the World Trade Center, and I forget the fourth thing. The Pentagon, which would have been the military-industrial complex. They targeted every single, you know, symbol of power of the West. And anyway, so as an example of the brilliance, even though it was evil deeds, harsh and cruel, but he was a great hero to, you know, many people in that side of the world. You know, like a Robin Hood. But from our perspective, this is the third pada, right? So this is what Dr. Saraswati and Prash say about it. But also very electrical, scientific, like research oriented. He was an engineer, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He went to engineering school in Tennessee. He spoke fluent several languages, and especially English. So, but he didn't mix, you know, he was like a Rudra. He wouldn't integrate or interact with Americans. He was separated and kind of kept himself outside of the normal society here.
Yeah, so we have his Rahu here. So this element is very, very strong. See, it's a Rahu Nakshatra, Rahu placed, and then again it goes into the house of Rahu.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would bring about, it could be violence on what we see as violence, rather, is his way of getting back. I mean, looking from his perspective, he was getting back. And we see it as violence. Violence is not the answer to everything, that we agree on. But then for him, that could have been the answer. Since we are not talking on any religious or any, fundamentalist point of view. We're talking about seeing things from a chart point of view.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. I try to see, you know, from their perspective, you know, I have my perspective as an American, but it's from his perspective. When we look at a chart, we want to see from what that's what I love about You know, I love Rudra. I love him, you know, so when I see him in someone's chart, I can see how he's working and why they would be upset. I mean, they were upset at, you know, the sacred land of Mecca and Medina. These sacred sites were invaded by these Western barbarians. When we invaded, we didn't invade, Saudi Arabia invited us, but from there, back in the Iraq War, the first Iraq War, that's what stimulated them to want revenge.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Desert Storm back in 1991, I believe it was. So
So
they saw all these troops, American troops, NATO troops on these sacred lands, and it drove them nuts. And they, you know, they waited and bided their time until the right opportunity came to get their revenge.
yeah,
And they were
so
trying to rectify something that was broken to them.
yes, and we can also go with the theme. See, as again, what they did was something not very right at all. I mean, you know, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth cannot be the answer to everything that you do. But
Right.
it's like Rudra calling for justice, you know, and
Yeah, yeah.
that was his way of getting justice for his people, getting noticed, being put on the map. So let's move on to Osama bin Laden. What do you have to say about him?
Just to relate that, what you're saying to the story, I mean, what's Rudra created by the gods to rectify something that's out of order? Brahma was chasing his daughter, trying to have sex with his own, you know, creation.
Creation.
And that had to be stopped. And then as soon as he shot Brahma, you know, lost one of his heads, or shot him down so he wasn't chasing the daughter anymore, he got abandoned by the gods. So
Yeah.
think about that, you know, Osama bin Laden and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, he's been in Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay this whole time, and Osama bin Laden had to live in a cave. And then they finally tracked him down and killed him. So the whole themes of being hunted. First they hunted, you know, they got, you know,
Yeah.
they got
First
their,
they and then later they became the hunt.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's all about the storm coming. He was warning all through the 90s. There were many, many smaller terrorist attacks. And he actually talked to the media, Al Jazeera and even ABC News in America. He told them, we're going to, you know, we're going to get you. You guys, you just watch. The day of Armageddon for America is coming soon, right? So that's the storm coming. So he was always warning, and nobody listened. That's why we were so shocked. And there's a
Okay.
lot of shock value to this nakshatra. You know, Rudra, that's his job, right? To really create a lot of shocking experience.
Okay.
I think there was one more
Yeah.
slide. Do we have time to show it?
We have lots and
Okay,
lots of
so Amanda Knox, do you know who she is?
no, but you will be telling.
She's a very interesting young woman who, this case was big in the news in the United States. She was from Seattle. She was going to school in Italy, Perugia, somewhere in the middle of Italy. And in a village there, she had a boyfriend and everything, but her roommate was murdered and
Mm-hmm.
she was accused.
Hmm.
So, see, she was murdered on November 1st, 2007. Here in the dashas of the 6th and 8th Lord, I just put that there for people into dashas. But it took 8 years. She went through 3 trials, 3 appeals. I mean, she was back and forth in jail, out of jail, in jail, out of jail. So the idea of the second pada, that's the storm gains momentum. It's full of frustration, troubles, misfortune. And it's the Ashtamamsha pada. Some people who don't know what that is, it's an interesting thing to check in charts to see the relationship of a planet. This is her Lugna Lord and her 6th Lord of obstacles and debt and, you know, conflict and trials and, you know, lawsuits and things like that. So that Venus is in the second pada, which is the worst pada. It's considered the most negative because one of the big reasons is it goes to the 8th house from Gemini.
The Rasi chart. Yeah. From the
Capricorn. And that creates a kind of 6/8 energy or 8th house energy of death and transformation. It's very like a misalignment of the soul with the manifestation, with the person's life. There's something really out of whack in her soul karma. So she goes through this experience. Now, so you can see here, I put here was Shiva teaching her a lesson. She was a kind of a very hoity-toity rich kid with an arrogant, very beautiful. She was very pretty, but she had a very arrogant, snotty attitude. I studied her a lot. And she went through this, and it really transformed her. And now she's an activist for people that go through, being falsely accused. She's very into giving service. The Venus is also the 6th lord. And so, it was a real 8-year ordeal.
So Venus goes into the 8th house of transformation from its own place in the Lagna. So any planet placed in the 2nd pada of Rahu Nakshatra would, especially your Adra, would undergo a lot of transformation and become a better person. Can we say that?
Well, it's only Ardra because of Gemini. Gemini, if it were Swati, say, second pada, second pada goes to Capricorn, but from Libra, which is the 4th house. You see, that's not an Ashtamamsha.
But that would mean a lot of transformation in life on account of your family, on account of your survival.
Yeah, if it's the 8th from, so in this case, Gemini to Capricorn. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, Venus is in the 2nd house, going to Capricorn Navamsha, not even knowing what, so we'd have to figure out what her Lagna is. It's in the
her Lagna is in Rohini. Yeah, it's in Rohini.
Right, 2nd pada, so that would be a Taurus. She's a Virgotama Lagna.
Taurus. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the 9th house, though. You see that?
Yes.
It goes to the 9th house in her Navamsha, because she's a Taurus Navamsha Lagna, which comes from a great family. She gets to go to school in Italy. She's very beautiful and very popular. And then she has this Venus. This is one of the factors. I'm sure there's plenty more. That her Lagna Lord, she has to go through this transformation of her perspective. What it's Venus? It's a Lagna Lord. Her focus in life got completely changed and transformed.
And yes, and she moved on to doing service at a higher level. So we see the transformation, everything. It becomes a very beautiful study if you can, integrate all the elements together, because Venus is also her Lagna Lord. So, so we move on to the 4th pada now.
I think that we looked at Satya Sai Baba, and he was the 4th pada. Now, Janis Joplin, now she was a great, famous rock star when I was a kid. She came from Texas to San Francisco. We used to go up to when I was a teenager and watch her sing. I mean, she was really powerful. Her stage presence was electric. I got that out of Wikipedia, but truly she was a masterful singer. And I don't know if it's kind of, I'm dating myself. Most people maybe haven't even heard of her, but we have this thing called the 27 Club. Those are these rock stars: Jimi Hendrix, this is Jim Morrison, Amy Winehouse, here's Janis Joplin, this is Kurt Cobain, this is Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones. All of these great rock stars died at 27 years old of a drug overdose.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so she was from very young, like 13, 14, she ran away from home and came to San Francisco. The hippie thing was not yet even started yet. It was the beatniks. She was a blues singer. And then the hippie thing, she became very famous and was taking all sorts of drugs. But she was famous for her voice and her power and this electric magnetism that she had on stage. But this, one of the themes of Ardra is drug addiction.
Yes.
and being an outcast. She was, even in the rock world, she was kind of an outcast because she was kind of ugly. She looks, just wild and crazy. They called her Howlin' Janis Joplin.
Hmm.
Like, I thought of Rudra means the roarer, the howler, right? Isn't
Hmm.
that one of his nicknames?
Hmm.
So she had this very kind of crass nature, and very sexually promiscuous, and drank and took all kinds of drugs and ended up having an overdose with all these other
So
great
that goes
stars.
again to the third pada is again Aquarius. So it's again, Satabhihisha, where Varuna and Varuni association of,
Yeah, yeah,
liquids.
yeah. Aquarius is kind of a poison, isn't it? The drinking of
It
the
does,
water.
it does have, see, if it takes you to a greater level, then it's, as I said about, our Ramakrishna Paramans. So it's moving on a different, it's vibrating on a different level. For her, it was vibrating on the Varuni level, wherein addictions become a part of one's character. So, yeah.
So you could say Rudra kind of can represent, this Shiva's ability to drink the poison,
Hmm.
like someone who can deal with a lot of that intense energy of Ardra, and if they can't process it or digest it, or they are not in control of themselves, like you're saying, at a different level. Unlike Ramakrishna, who was a very trained tantrika, right? He had all kinds of training how to deal with the energy of what was it, Ardra, but also Shatabi, Purva Bhadrapada. He had
Hmm.
all that kind of, I think he had something in Purva Bhadra, was it his moon? And Shatabi, I mean, a lot of Aquarius energy. So anyway, I try to find people who bring out those themes, and if you go through I just pick out a few themes and try to write them up there on that one page. But there's a lot of, if you look at a chart, you can start to see, wow, there's that, and there's that. There's the abandonment issues. When they're a child, there's the addiction to drugs, and you'll find a lot of addiction in all these people. It may not be drugs, but it'll be some kind of obsession or addiction, and a tremendous amount of effort applied to and many obstacles in their lives. You looked at Einstein, how hard it was for him to get recognized.
Hmm.
It was really hard. We see him after he became famous, but he was working in a patent office in a clerk job, and that's because he couldn't get recognized. He couldn't make money. He had a family, and so the themes really kind of come out in these different people.
Yes, I totally agree to what you're saying, SueAnn, and it's a beautiful way to learn more deeply about people, I mean, what makes them tick and what
Yeah,
they have in store for them. When you're doing analysis as a consultant, you understand what they're in store for, and you can tell people, how to handle things coming your way so that you're much more safer.
yeah, yeah. They feel understood too. Like,
Yes.
my husband has 3 planets in Ardra. That's why I picked it, because I feel comfortable with Ardra. I live with a strong Ardra person. And when I was first learning about it and reading this stuff to him, I didn't see it in him. And he would say, yes. And then he explained to me what it means from his perspective. And he's not an astrologer. He just understood, like, the story of Rudra, and how he got abandoned, and the difficult, like, I didn't know he had different names before I met him.
Hmm.
You see this a lot. Osama bin Laden had a whole bunch of names.
Hmm.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had like 50 pseudonyms. Things
Hmm.
like that. So yeah, it really does. It really made me a true believer when I started to check it out with people, that they really related to these deities, but you have to kind of see how it works with them from their life and their experience.
Yes, nakshatras are a beauty. And we're not leaving you just with Adra. We're going to take you across a number of nakshatras as and when time permits for you, because you are one busy personality. Thank
Mm.
you, SueAnn. Thank you
Thank you so
so much.
much. I appreciate the invitation. It's wonderful.
It's been a revelation, and it's going to be very well sought out by the audience also. Hoping to see you again, and with that, everybody else out there, have a great day and stay safe till we come back again.
Okay, thank you very much, Anuradha ji.
Thank you so much, SueAnn, for being there.